5 is a map that I don't quite think gets quite as much appreciation as it deserved. At least, it certainly didn't in its own time. It was overshadowed by Kino because it was a lot more popular, and that's for several reasons. It was a lot easier, making it more accessible. It didn't really ask too much of the player. Everything that it required was simple and easy to figure out. But 5 isn't just another Black Ops 1 Zombies map. I think it is the other important half to Black Ops 1's launch. I briefly went over this in my Kino review, and if you have not seen that, I'd highly recommend watching that first, because these two videos are quite intertwined, just like the maps themselves. Normally, I tackle each map one at a time, but I feel like Kino and 5 are so closely connected that the Kino review is pretty much necessary to understanding my stance on the 5 review. It's why I waited for this review to be completed before publishing the Kino review, so if you haven't seen it, I'd highly recommend watching that first. This video ain't going anywhere, don't worry. So without further ado, let's get into the map. So, I already argued in my Kino review that Kino was a very easy map. That's why it got so much widespread appeal, but what about those that thought Kino might have been too easy? Well, that's where 5 comes in. It becomes clear that 5 is clearly meant for the more hardcore audience because, unlike Kino, it's not available right off the bat. In order to unlock it, you either have to beat the Black Ops 1 campaign, or enter in the cheat code 3-arc unlock into the terminal on the main menu. If you couldn't intuit the higher difficulty from that, then you'll easily figure it out once you actually boot up the map. Kino's spawn room has quite a bit of room to move around in. While it's certainly not the easiest training spot on the map, somebody new to zombies could probably get the hang of staying in there for the first couple of rounds while they try to survive. 5 is a lot tighter though. Passages are pretty narrow, barely wide enough to move around the zombies. It's not quite as narrow as Verrückt was, but it still makes it pretty difficult to maneuver. Staying with just your starting pistol in the spawn room isn't probably going to last you a while, so you're going to have to open up the door to the hallway, which doesn't offer much more training room, but you do have access to the MPL in here, which will keep you alive for a little bit. Having said that, you're probably also going to notice pretty quickly how little supplies you actually have. In Kino der Toten, it only took you 4 door purchases in order to get to the power switch. Technically, the same is true here on 5. Though this time it actually takes a lot longer to get to weapons that are actually worth a damn. See, Black Ops 1 wall weapons don't have a lot of ammo, and they also stop killing zombies pretty early on. The only 3 wall buys that are actually pretty good are the AK-74U, the M16, and the MP40. Kino der Toten, it will only take you 2 door purchases to either get you to the AK-74U or the MP40. Not to mention, it's a pretty good chance that you might actually run into the box pretty early. On 5, however, you don't get to the AK-74U or the M16 wall buy until you get down to level 3. Which means until then, you are stuck with the shittier wall weapons such as the MPL or MP5. They're not unusable by any means, but what you're going to find is you're going to run out of ammo pretty quickly. By round 5, I'm already having to rebuy ammo for the MPL. Normally, you'd be able to run back and buy more ammo, but 5 actually segregates its level design. See, Kino der Toten and pretty much all the World at War maps were all one interconnected unit. 5, however, separates its 3 main areas by elevators. You have level 1, which is the offices, level 2, which is the war room, and level 3, which is the labs. While the elevator only really costs 250 points to use, it does take a while, and then you'll have to go back and use it again if you want to go back. This means that once you buy an elevator and take it down to the next level, you probably won't return back up until you get the power on and turn on the teleporters. This means even if you get the MPL and then take the elevator down, technically you could take the elevator back up to buy more ammo, but that's going to be an additional 500 points round trip, not to mention it's going to take a while. More than likely, you'll probably want to press on ahead. This can be problematic if you run out of ammo. Speaking of which, once you take the elevator down to the war room, you'll probably notice really quickly that the top catwalk area is a death trap. When I was little, I remember dying in the catwalk so much that I eventually just stopped going down to the war room until I also had enough points to purchase the debris leading to the bottom area where I had a bit more room to navigate. Still, you're also going to be low on supplies here, so you're probably going to quickly head down to the labs as well. When you get to the labs, you can turn the power switch on and it'll activate teleporters all around the map. There's one on level 1, one on level 2, and a whole bunch on level 3 where you are. This will allow you to revisit all the floors without having to spend money on the elevators, but the thing is, where the teleporters take you is completely random. The only surefire thing that I know of is that if you use the teleporter in the same room with the power switch, it'll always either take you to level 1 or level 2. It won't just spit you out on a random teleporter in level 3. However, the rest of the teleporters, they don't have any such guarantees. This can be a bit annoying if you're trying to go to a certain location, such as trying to go back to the war room if you need to get Jug, but it keeps sending you between level 1 and level 3. Now, level 3 also has the mystery box, which will always spawn in one of the 3 rooms where you have to open another door. This, along with the fact that you have the 2 best wall buys on the map down here, and the fact that you can start grabbing your perks, would make you think that the map suddenly is going to get easier. And in some ways it does, but turning on the power also means that the Pentagon Thief can show up. This is the first new boss enemy that we've had since the Hellhounds on Kino, at least in the way that it has its own round. I know we had Nova Crawlers on Kino, but those just spawned alongside regular zombies. And the Pentagon Thief was one of the reasons why I hated this map as a kid. He'll come out of the teleporters, he'll run up to you and steal your gun, then run off with them. You have to try and kill him. If you kill him after he takes your guns, you'll get him back, but if he escapes, well, you obviously lose him. Which means if, say, you finally get a good gun out of the box, but he takes it, well, now you're back to square one. Now, while 10-year-old me certainly hated this, as an adult, I actually really like him. As aggravating as it is that he can steal your weapons, there's a couple things that make it so you can prepare for him. Like I said, he'll show up on a special round, which essentially replaces the Hellhound rounds. He'll usually come a round or 2 after you turn on the power, and after that, every 4 or 5 rounds after that. If you keep track of them, you have a pretty good idea of when he's going to come. The second thing is, when he spawns in, he'll always come through one of the teleporters. If you happen to be stuck on level 3, this can be a bit of a nightmare, but more than likely you'll either be on level 1 or level 2, where there's only one place he can come from. By positioning yourself in the spot where you can get a lot of shots in on him while he has to run a long winding path, you can maximize your chances of taking him out. And if he does get close, you can always try switching to whatever your weaker weapon is so you still have your stronger weapon when you have to chase him. This on its own might have still been annoying, but what makes it great is the risk-reward. See, if he steals your weapons and then he escapes, you'll lose your weapon, but the game will at least give you a max ammo as a consolation. If he takes your weapon, but you manage to take him out before he escapes, you'll get your weapons back, and he'll also drop both a max ammo and a fire sale power-up. This will allow you to get better weapons from the box at a low price. But the ultimate prize is if you manage to kill him before he takes any of your weapons. He will drop a max ammo and a bonfire sale, a unique power-up that would not show up again until Classified in Black Ops 4, where all the teleporters would lead to the Pack-a-Punch room and the price of Pack-a-Punch gets cut down to 1/5 of its price, aka 1,000 points. This basically means that if your weapons are not upgraded at all, they should be after this, unless you just happen to be really broke for some reason. Speaking of Pack-a-Punch, let's talk about next. The process is fairly simple. Once you get the power turned back on, simply head to the war room, run around, hit all 4 of the DEFCON switches to switch it to DEFCON 5. This will cause the teleporters to lead towards the panic room, where you can find the Pack-a-Punch machine. Pretty simple process, just repeat it whenever you want to do it. This time though, instead of teleporting you out of the room, instead it opens the doors to the room and lets the zombies in, and the doors will shut after all players have left. Additionally, when this happens, the Pack-a-Punch machine will turn around and become unavailable again, so you can't just leave one person in there to have permanent access to the thing. Beyond that, what else is there about the map? In terms of strategies, as far as I know, there's really only two main options. Either camp in the elevators or train in the war room. I think there's like some hybrid strategy where one person trains in the war room while everybody else sits near the jug machine and the panic room door. But besides that, there aren't too many options for survival. I mean, you basically have to be a god to make training work in level 1, and in level 3, the areas are also extremely tight and difficult to navigate. Not to mention, a bunch of Nova Crawlers will spawn down there. Thankfully, they won't spawn if you are not in the lab, so it's not as annoying as it was in Kino. And like I said in Kino, I don't hate the Nova Crawlers, but they're not my favorite special enemy either. Additionally, I'm not quite sure if I'm a huge fan of the way content is spaced throughout the map. Obviously, it's a Black Ops 1 map, and an early one at that, so it's not going to have a whole lot of content. Just a little bit more than a World at War map, essentially. But the thing is, a lot of the content is mainly focused on levels 1 and 2. In particular, the perks. Level 1 has Quick Revive and Speed Cola. Level 2 has Double Tap and Juggernog. Level 3 doesn't have any perks. So if you go down and lose your perks and you need to get them all back, you don't really need to head to level 3. In fact, the only reason you'll probably head down there is because you go into the teleporter and it just throws you down there. So, say you're training in the war room, you go down, you grab Jug and Double Tap, you go into the teleporters, it throws you down to level 3. Then you're trying to get to level 1, but maybe it keeps throwing you to level 2. Yeah, it's really annoying the way the teleporter system is just completely random. Additionally, when you come out of a teleporter, you gotta wait like 30 seconds or so to be able to use it again. I get that this is kind of to prevent the players from just, like, holding back on their left analog stick to, like, just keep teleporting and be invincible. But I do think they could have shortened the cooldown. But back to my earlier point, what even is there in the level 3 area? I mean, you turn on the power, there's a couple mystery box locations in there, including the initial box spawn, but once you get your guns, really no reason to go back there unless you bleed out in co-op. I guess there are claymores and the Bowie knife, both of which are one-time purchases, and you'll never lose them unless, again, you bleed out. And I think there's a frag grenade wall by down there, which, I mean, who the fuck even buys frag grenades off the wall? Pretty much, once I turn on the power, the only reason I have to go back down there intentionally is if I need to hit the box. Hell, even after Moon Release and Treyarch patched in Mule Kick, they put it in the war room like 10 feet away from the jug machine. Like, they could have just thrown that in the labs, like in the Porcine Research Laboratory or something. That way, if I went down, I'd probably have a lot more reason to go there, since not only would I have to buy back Mule Kick, but I'd also have to get my gun back from the box. Speaking of which, let's talk about the wonder weapon, the Winter's Howl. This thing fucking sucks. The Black Ops 1 Winter's Howl might as well be shooting fucking snowflakes at the zombies for how effective it is. It mostly just slows down the zombies and takes multiple shots to actually kill anything, assuming you're on a low enough round where it actually can kill anything. This does not pair well with the thing's low ammo capacity, and like I said, this map is really tight, which means frozen zombies block your path. This wonder weapon can very easily be your demise. Maybe if the Winter's Howl was on a map that was more open, something like Kino or Ascension, maybe it would be a bit better, but no, they just had to throw it on the map that would pair the worst with it. As such, I just often don't go out of my way to get the damn thing. In fact, even if it does come up in the box, I usually just won't grab it. Instead, I'll just opt to stick with my M1911 and pack-a-punch that when I can. That, or go for the ray gun and then usually get something like the HK-21 out of the box. Obviously, it doesn't do infinite damage, but I mean, hey, neither does the Winter's Howl. Speaking of infinite damage, there's only one thing that can do infinite damage, that being the traps. Previous maps had traps pretty much almost in every room. 5, however, only has 2 electroshock barriers. Both of them are on level 1 in very out-of-the-way places, where pretty much the only time that they would actually be effective is if you're actually going out of your way to lead the zombies through them. And even then, it is very tricky and can get you killed very quickly if you don't know what you're doing. Additionally, you can't even use them right from the get-go. You have to actually grab a trap part for each of them. One of them is in the war room near the elevator, and the other is in the porcine research laboratory on level 3. I guess you need them to high round, and really does make the map really challenging. Personally, though, I just haven't gotten to the point where I've had to do that. Usually, I just train in the war room. I gotta say, though, once you actually do get set up, the map does become quite a bit easier, and it can be quite a bit of fun. It's definitely a lot more challenging than Kino, and while I hated that challenge as a kid, now that I'm actually more skilled at zombies, I actually really do appreciate it. And I'm sure that those who were more skilled at zombies when Black Ops 1 was fresh off the presses really would have liked this map when everybody else was playing Kino, which maybe would have been too easy for them. In terms of side content, as far as I know, the only thing that there is, of course, the music Easter egg. This one is actually Won't Back Down by Eminem. It's actually a licensed song instead of one created in-house by Kevin Sherwood, Elena Siegman, Clark S. Nova, yada yada yada. It fits the map surprisingly well. I really love when I activate the third phone inside the panic room, the song starts playing, and then as the vocals cut in, the doors open, and I just let up into the zombies with my weapons that have just been pack-a-punched. It is a lot of fun and a really cool feeling. Another thing is I do like the atmosphere. The offices are nice and pristine, the war room seems very professional, and the labs gives you a sense of you're seeing something that you're just not supposed to. It kind of reminds me of Portal, honestly. And of course, I love the characters. John F. Kennedy, Robert McNamara, Fidel Castro, and Richard Nixon is a really cool cast for a zombies map. Obviously, it's not something I would have wanted to see become a mainstay, but for a one-off map, it works exceptionally well. And they play off each other really well. As far as the story goes, as far as I know, 5 is largely disconnected from everything else. I mean, I think they canonically survive the attack. The Pentagon Thief, I think, is Yuri Grigorovich, or whatever his name was, from Ascension, and in fact the whole map takes place during the events of Ascension. But besides that, it's largely disconnected. Like Kino der Toten, there isn't a main Easter egg. Again, a bit befuddling since Doris had one, but then Kino and 5 don't. Whatever, I guess. And unlike all the previous maps I've reviewed, there has not yet been a remaster of this map to talk about. And before somebody says something about Classified, that is a remake or a reimagining. It's sufficiently different enough to warrant its own review. I consider it its own separate map. So I'll talk about that when I get to the Black Ops 4 maps. So, how does this tie in with everything? Well, 5 was the challenging map in Black Ops 1 Zombies. The one for those that maybe didn't like Kino due to it being too easy. Or for those that maybe were getting really good at Kino and wanted to up the ante, then they could try 5. So while these might not be the greatest maps when looking at them individually, they complement each other so well and make Black Ops 1 Zombies feel like a complete package pre-DLC. And that, I think, is really impressive. So overall, what would I rate 5? As fun as it is, and as nice as the challenging aspect is, it still is a Black Ops 1 map, and therefore doesn't really have as much content as what would come later. And even within Black Ops 1 itself, it is one of the more simpler maps. Not to mention it has the teleporters that are random. Pentagon Thief and overall map design can be a bit punishing, and of course I'm not a huge fan of the Nova Crawlers or the map layout. But overall, I really do enjoy this map, and I think I'd actually rank it a bit above Kino. Personally, I'd give 5 a 6.5 out of 10. Anyways, that's going to wrap it up for this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe for more, and tell me what you think of 5. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, that's it. Peace!